he saw the speed and the acceleration of Lance Armstrong.
Is this the beginning of the end for Tom Brady?
Raises his arms in triumph. Julius Diego.
Has Cloutier been playing well?
Marion Jones, former sprint star.
The reason we did it was standing up against the tyranny in Zimbabwe.
It's a terrific run. Can he go all the way?
Hello and welcome. You're watching Seriously Sport. Good to have you with us once again. Now, as you know, on Question Sports, in the last 2 years or so, we've brought you unrivaled boxing content on the continent and from far afield. Now, Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko will go down as one of the greatest heavyweight bouts in the history of the sport. And you saw that fight right here on Question Sports, along with the monthly installments of Question Friday Fight Night, of course. We'll continue to bring you the best boxing the continent and the world has to offer. Now, with Africa and China working closely on the economic front, it makes sense for them to partner up in sport as well. So tonight we're going to take you on the Silk Road to boxing glory. I'm joined from Tanzania by the IBF President of Africa a little bit later on in the show. He's the President of Africa and the Middle East, Mr. Onesmo Ngowi. But first, joining me from Cape Town, South Africa now is Steve Kalakoda, the founder and owner of Kalakoda Promotions. Steve, thank you very much for joining us. Before we touch on this groundbreaking deal that was signed earlier this morning, tell us a bit about yourself and how you landed up getting involved in the sport of boxing.
Well, I grew up in District 6. You know, District 6 has quite a history in South Africa. And it was a very poor community that I grew up in. And I needed to... The reason why I took up boxing was because I needed to defend myself in this community where I was living. And I was introduced to boxing by a man who was in the Navy. He was the chief of the physical instructing unit of the South African Navy. And he used to come to District 6 to teach youngsters boxing. But he made a very... he was a very big influence in my life. This gentleman was named Warrant Officer McCartney. He was from Ireland, and he introduced me to boxing. And I was very committed. I was actually forced to do the sport because, you know, bullying didn't start today. Bullying with kids started from whenever, you know, there was always bullying. And I was also bullied in a way as a youngster, but when I took up boxing, I became confident. I could defend myself, so it was a natural thing for me to do. But it changed my life completely, because after I started boxing, I went to provincial championships, I went to national championships, and when I was 18 years old, Warrant Officer McCartney, who was still in the Navy at that stage, asked me if I want to join the Navy. I was then the South African national champion. And he said to me, you should join the Navy, you've got a lot of talent, and when you're in the Navy, you can explore many different opportunities in your life. It was the best decision I've ever made. So boxing was one of the reasons why I joined the South African Navy. I became a physical training instructor and through Warrant Officer McCartney, and that my natural talent came out of coaching other people, and also the ability to organizational ability, organizing sport. So the Navy was a huge influence in my life. What I'm doing today is almost everything that I've learned in the military. Promoting, coaching people. I've gone through every level of boxing. I was an amateur boxer. I was a coach of the South African National Defence Force. I've also coached at various prisons and reformatories for boys. We still have a program now where we have kids in Khayelitsha. We built a gym for kids in Khayelitsha from containers. And all this came about because I understood what you have to do and what you have to provide for children to get them off the streets. And because I was in that situation myself, it was a natural thing for me to do. So yeah, that's what was how I started. And I also traveled all over the world. I was involved in the K1 in Japan. I was introduced to the K1 in 1995, and I had a fighter called Mike Bernardo. And when they invited us to Japan for the first time, they told us that we're going to fight a guy by the name of Andy Hug, who was a hero in Japan from Kyokushin Karate. We had no knowledge of who the guy was until we arrived in Japan, and we saw posters all over the airport and everywhere in the hotel. Then we realized this was actually the main fight. We didn't know. And Mike Bernardo won the first fight in Japan. He became an instant hero in front of 17,000 people. And then I ended up staying in Japan for 16 years. So I've learned a lot there. I saw how they promote fighting. What I'm doing now is actually what the Japanese people are doing to popularize sport. I have seen how the K1, from 17,000 people in their first event, 6 years later, went to the Tokyo Dome with 75,000 people. And how they promoted the sport was exactly what Kwesi Sport is doing, what I'm doing now. And also, you have to have in sport a broadcaster that understands the sport and want to promote the sport. Boxing comes natural to African people. It's a natural sport for African people. They're natural warriors. So by Kwesi assisting Kalakoda Promotions, working with Kalakoda Promotions to promote boxing in Africa was a huge decision, and we are very appreciative that we can be part of building boxing in Africa. There's lots of talent in Africa, all over Africa. It's natural. You can go anywhere in Africa, you will find kids. They will play soccer or they will play boxing. There's a difference in what I'm telling you now. When you play a sport, if you talk to kids in Africa, it's not I'm going to boxing, I'm going to play boxing. So they have a different mentality of boxing. They play boxing. It's not violent, it's a game. So it comes natural for children all over Africa, girls and boys. It changes their mentality about life. It gives them the ability to get confident in whatever. Boxing is not just about getting into the ring in boxing. Someone can become a champion in education. He can become a doctor. He can become a lawyer. He can become a businessman. So boxing is just one avenue that you can use. And today, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that Kwesi TV is giving us, Kalakoda Promotion, and also Africa, to bring the sport that we love to the screen so that millions of people can sit at home and enjoy boxing. Boxing's entertainment. We have the ability to give this entertainment to millions of people throughout the continent.
Well, Steve, that's a lot of history from the Navy, Kailija Township, all the way to Tokyo. Amazing stuff. Now, how much talent do you think is on the African continent, and what are Kalakoda Promotions' plans to, go and unearth this talent?
As I mentioned earlier, boxing is a natural sport for African children. They don't, if I have coached at the very highest level. If I'm taking 10 kids here, African kids, out of 10, 8 will have natural ability for boxing. They have natural rhythm. They have everything. They have good hand and eye coordination. So it's natural for African people to do boxing. And on the African continent, it's unbelievable the amount of talent that we have. All we need to do is we need to nurture that talent. We need to make sure that kids out there have access to boxing. And one of the main reasons getting children interested in boxing, we have an abundance of talent in every country in the African continent. If you go to the Olympics, or you go to the African Championships, or you go to the Commonwealth Champions, Africans always feature in the finals of those competitions. Over the weekend on Friday at least, was the Olympic Youth Championships in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. And a 16-year-old girl from Nigeria won the silver medal in a weight category. So that tells you that we don't only have talent amongst boys, we have talent among girls as well. There's a lot of talent, it's the opportunities that we need to create. And one of the reasons why we can explore those opportunities is what Kwesi is doing. Kwesi is making boxing available on television. Kids sit at home, they watch top fighters engage in boxing. That makes them aware that if I train hard and if I go to the gym every day, I can become like those heroes. So what we're doing is we are creating good role models for children to look up to. On Friday in Nigeria, we have a big event where Tony Salam is fighting Gonarenda. And in Nigeria, with 170 million people, I'm telling everybody out there, if you're in Nigeria on Friday, make sure that you watch your television. There's going to be pain in Lagos on Friday. And I want to tell all the kids that are watching Kwesi and watching Kalakoda promotion boxing on TV, we are going to create opportunities for all the future champions out there.
Pain in Lagos this coming Friday. Now, Kwesi and Kalakoda Promotions have been in partnership for almost 2 years now, and they've been in countries like Ghana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, you name them. And as you mentioned, that big event taking place in Nigeria as well this coming Friday. But your opinion on which is the best event so far?
Well, I have no doubt in my mind which event was the best. But first of all, you know, as your question asked, Kalakoda and Kwesi has been together for 2 years. I am just grateful for Kwesi TV for giving us, Kalakoda Promotions, the opportunity. We've been busy every month with boxing, and it was sometimes difficult going out of the country and doing events, but Kwesi was supporting us 100%. So we are very, very thankful for the opportunity that Kwesi has been giving us to get exposure for boxing on the African continent, but also other parts of the world. Our best event was our last event in Cape Town. It was held at the Cape of Good Hope Castle. The castle is 400 years old, and it was at the foot of Table Mountain. We had a perfect day. We could see the mountain. We had a fantastic crowd. We had almost 4,000 people in the castle. That's the biggest crowd we have ever seen in boxing in Cape Town. So it was by far the best. The location, the city of Cape Town, Table Mountain, one of the 7 wonders of the world. We at the foot of Table Mountain, we had this event, and it was open air. So that was by far the best event for me. We had a great bull. It was a fantastic, we had a first light heavyweight South African title fight at that event. And a Cape Town fighter won the title. So there was many good memories. We also had a great heavyweight bout between a Slovenian fighter, Haris Asalik, and Nico Mnyanji from Cameroon. So that is by far our best event that we've had so far, in my opinion.
Yep, it was a big event, was a really big event. Let's look forward now. What are Kalakoda Promotions' plans in the coming few months?
Our plan with Kwesi TV is to ensure that we provide good entertainment. We have to have good fights consistently. We want to find more new talent in Africa so that we can expose the talent that we have in Africa, and also give opportunities to fighters to fight for legitimate world titles, change their standard of living by being able to fight. You know, if I have a professional boxer and you ask the professional boxer, where do you want to go? He will say to you, I want to go to England, or I want to go to the United States of America. Kwesi has now given us, with Kalakoda Promotions, Kwesi's given Kalakoda Promotions the opportunity for young boxers in this continent to say, you know what, I don't want to go to England. I don't want to go to the United States of America because of Kwesi Sport and Kalakoda Promotions, I can achieve what I want to achieve right here on the African continent. So we want to increase the viewership by promoting bigger fights, by promoting high-profile fights. And so far, we have been progressing, but we want to improve that to have better fights, better quality fights, and also more entertainment with our boxing. So that people cannot just watch the boxing. They must look at boxing as a form of entertainment. So that is our plans going forward. And we need the support of Kwesi to take that to the continent.
I think you've got the support of Kwesi all the way. Now, early on, we touched on a massive deal up front with the IBF, and that deal was signed earlier today. Tell us a bit more about this deal. What's it all about?
This is indeed a very big deal. You know, there's a lot of things happening between China and Africa, and it's all happening in the line of business. Everything you read about China, Africa is in business. But now, both the Africans and Chinese, we need to engage in sport. There is no official sport really where Africans and Chinese are engaging with each other. In China, there's a lot of emphasis on sport. The Chinese people want to perform in sport. They want to perform at the very highest level. I have now been approached, Kalakoda Promotions have been approached by the president of the IBF Africa and Middle East, Mr. Onesmo Ngowi. He's been involved in boxing for more than 25 years. He's been the president of the IBF Africa for more than 25 years, and he has approached me. At the last convention of the IBF in Italy, the IBF China has approached him and asked him if it's possible that we can engage with boxing, having regular events, in fact, 2 events a year, one in Africa and one in China, and it's called the IBF Silk Road. So what Mr. Ngowi is doing is he's introducing Kalakoda Promotions and Kwesi Sport to Rejoy. Rejoy Promotions is the biggest boxing promotional company in China. So we, as Kalakoda, Kwesi TV, and CCTV China are going to collaborate, and we're going to host this event on a regular basis for the next 5 years. So today is a very important day. We're going to sign the first MOU, and then the Chinese promoters will come to South Africa to have a site inspection, and our first event in Africa will be held at Robben Island.
That's fantastic stuff. Sounds very exciting. Looking forward to all of those events that you're talking about, Steve. That is Steve Kalakoda from Kalakoda Promotions, doing amazing things with Kwesi Sports. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you very much, Tony. Much appreciated.
All right, coming up next, we'll be chatting to the other party involved in the deal that Steve was talking about, and that's the president of the IBF Africa and Middle East, Mr. Onesmo Ngowi from Tanzania. Stay with us. You're with Serious Sport. Now, before we went to the break, we heard from Steve Kalakoda, the founder and owner of Kalakoda Boxing Promotions, about a massive deal that's been signed with Silk Road and the Chinese that has massive potential to make African boxing unstoppable in the near future. Now, we're joined by the IBF president of Africa and the Middle East, Mr. Onesmo Ngowi, from our studios in Tanzania. Firstly, Mr. Ngowi, thank you for taking the time to join us and speak to us. Let's get some background about yourself and how you landed up working for the IBF.
Well, Tony, thank you very much for having me here. I feel very privileged to actually, visit your studio today, Kwesi TV, and actually be able to talk to people, viewers around the world. My name is Onesmo Alfred Ngowi. I'm from Tanzania. Basically, I was born in Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. And my father was one of those international people and travelers. And I also actually embarked on traveling in my youth time, traveling all over the world. And I ended up actually also being a diplomatic corps, so that spent some time in America and Europe as well. As actually I spent most of my youth life and part of my adult life in Europe and America. So in 1999, I actually was approached by IBF to launch the first IBF continental body away from the United States of America. And that's when the IBF Africa was actually born in 1999. And I was actually very happy and pleased to locate the head office of IBF Africa in Moshi under the slope of Mount Kilimanjaro, known as the Roof of Africa. That actually, in essence, that if you have a head office of IBF in Africa, in Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, that means you are overlooking and sending hopes and love across the continent of Africa. And that's actually why and how IBF Africa ended up in Moshi as an office for IBF Africa. But we work also in African continent and the Middle East countries and Persian Gulf countries. So we are all actually across Africa and Middle East and Persian Gulf, over 1.4 billion people in Africa and Middle East and Persian Gulf. So we are very privileged actually since we started. We have actually been able to help many youth and many boxers in attaining recognition internationally, and also help them to use IBF as a pathways to their career in boxing. As you know, that IBF is one of the major international organizations in the world. Actually, and I can say one of the top, or the top IBF, boxing organization in the world, that believe up to date in the essence of the Swiss science, as it was actually modeled in the Marquis of Queensberry in England, that you have one champion in one division, whereas other boxing organizations, they've got several champions in one division. But I feel IBF stick to the rules, uphold the rules of boxing. It was actually invented that each division must have a true champion in every division. And we keep that, we believe in that. And we are the only one organization in the world that believe and attain and uphold those rules. And that's IBF Africa.
All right, you're doing some fantastic work. Let's stay with the youth for the moment. Now, often you hear about rag to riches or rags to riches stories that take place in the world of boxing. Is it pretty much in the same sort of vein on the African continent, youngsters using boxing as an avenue out of poverty?
Well, boxing is believed to have started in Africa, in Abyssinia, in fact, Ethiopia. And it started that actually because boxers and Africans are naturally warriors. And when you see people dancing, every beat of a drum and all that, it actually pounds and it moves the body into a right manner, into a warrior manner and all that. And so that we think and we believe that boxing, Africans are naturally warriors and boxers. And that's why you find that most African youth or young people, be them female and male, they are naturally boxers and warriors. So there's abundant talent of boxing in Africa without, discriminating gender when it comes to women and all that. And if you look at the majority of the world champions today in female world champions are African or people of color. So there's abundant of talents of boxing in Africa because we are naturally boxers. And I think if we are given an opportunity, and that we have given now, like we see Kwesi TV partnering with Coca-Cola, and now IBF Silk Road coming over with Coca-Cola and Kwesi Sports, we are going to bomb the continent. Africa is going to be #1 in the world. And I'm telling you, in the 70s, when boxing was very popular in America, in Philadelphia, and of course London and all that, But now, the future of boxing in the world is in Africa. Not in Latin America, not in Asia, it's going to be in Africa. Because this is where the future of boxing is. Africans are growing up, and not only that, the Africa is not the sport of the ghetto anymore. Africa is the box of the affluent Africans. You find boxers in Africa now fighting in the ring with the degree, university degrees. Boxers coming from the high school and go to the boxing. I mean, Africans. So this is not just a sport of the poor Africans. It's a sport of people. It's changing lives of African youth. African youth are fighting. They're attending college. They've got a different career, but they're also fighting. And they're able now to invest the money that they're getting from boxing into whatever they want.
Interesting. Now, what are the plans for the IBF going forward in Africa?
We are planning to launch with, hopefully now, with the introduction of the Silk Road, IBF Silk Road. We're also launching the zonal titles. And that's what actually Kalakoda and myself, we've been actually working on, is to give more opportunities to young Africans to fight for titles, and also to give them opportunities to change their lives. Because now, like, the IBF is not only doing the sports in the ring as well. On the community side, we are sponsoring young people to school. Like in Tanzania, we've got IBF incubation programs that send young people to vocational education to learn skills, so they can actually have all their skills outside the boxing. So IBF actually is planning a myriad of activities. One is in the ring, but the other one actually outside the ring. We need a boxer to have a different skills out of the boxing. So when they retire, with the money that they make or the money that they didn't make, they can also continue their lives in different actually stage or different way of life.
Okay, now earlier on we touched on the Silk Road deal with Steve Kalakoda. Now, how will this deal actually work? Will it only benefit African and Chinese fighters, or is there a plan to create a global tournament from this?
When we signed Silk Road last year in St. Louis, Florida, we combined Europe, Africa, Eurasia, and China. So it's all these continents. So boxers will be coming from all this area to fight in, actually find a baby. And this is a series where boxers start from the advanced level, and then they go to quarterfinal, and they go to semi-final. And then final is actually, it takes place in Macau or mainland China. And we are going to, we are planning, let's say in a year, in Africa, to have at least 2 or 3 events of Silk Road. And then from there, boxers then go to China for final and advanced stage. But you have to know, Tony, that what Silk Road is doing, and through Silk Road initiative of China, economic advancement to Africa and other countries, is to give opportunities to people and businesses to come together. China came to Africa a long time ago. Like in Africa, France, they came through the Bay of Mogadishu and straight to Mozambique so many years ago, during the Ming Empire or Ming Dynasty. And now it's the same thing that they're using now, using Silk Road and through sports to actually reinvent themselves, to recover themselves, so that they can make Africa a more affluent and more able to actually understand how to do business and all that.
Looking forward to those Silk Road events. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Ngowi, and good luck with these new ventures.
Thank you, Tony, and I'm looking forward, and thank you, Quest and Kalakoda Sports. Thank you very much.
All right, fantastic stuff. Now, don't forget to tune in for Friday Night Fights this Friday for our very first event in Nigeria. You can catch it on our YouTube and Facebook pages as well as on Kwesa Free Sports from 2100 Central African Time. As mentioned by Steve Kalakoda, the main event will be the rematch between Tony Salam from Nigeria up against Sting Gonerenda from Zimbabwe. And it promises to be an incredible evening of boxing. Make sure you catch us there. Well, that's all we have for you for tonight on Serious Sport. We'll catch you again next week, same place, same time. Goodbye for now.
He saw the speed and the acceleration of Lance Armstrong.
Is this the beginning of the end for Tom Brady?
Uses his arms in triumph. Julius Diego.
Has one year been playing well.
Marion Jones, former sprint star.
The reason we did it was standing up against the tyranny in Zimbabwe.
It's a terrific run. Can he go